Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Vox Podcast. We have a very special episode. We're all quarantined out here in our different locations, but we have a very special guest who is quarantined out in Ohio.
That's right.
Please welcome back to the Vox Podcast, the host, the founder, the man with the plan, Mr. Michael Carl Erre.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Bonnie. Hello, Tim.
Oh
Hello,
my gosh,
everybody.
It's so good. We're all together again.
Hello, Internet. Yes. Oh,
Hello,
it's
Internet.
so great.
We've been missing that one.
We've missed Hello, Internet. Yeah.
Yes.
It's so good to see you guys.
It is so good to see you. And so for those of you who are wondering, wait, why are you cheering for Mike? Why is he back? And you missed a few episodes. We wanted to do a follow-up conversation to an episode that we did. It was episode 224. Called Together in Process. So if you missed that episode, you might want to push pause, go back and listen to that one, and then skip back ahead to this one.
Yes.
It's like a choose your own adventure.
Yes, a little bit, except Mike is going to tell us an update all about the adventure he's been on. And Tim and I are going to share about the adventure we've been on over these past few months. We all have had a big time of growth and process and change. So we wanted to come on and hear from Mike and process together again.
Yep.
So Mike,
yes.
So happy you're here.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, man, it is so great to be here. As Bonnie said, for those of you catching up to the conversation, in December 1st, I believe it was, I confessed to building an inappropriate or pursuing an inappropriate emotional connection with somebody via text who is not my wife. And also just my, issues with porn had been resurfacing and food was crappy. And I was just at wit's end. Bonnie had seen something and innocently called and said, "Hey, what's this?" And it just prompted, oh my goodness, this is I'm tired of hiding. And so we then spent the month of December sort of wrestling through, okay, what's this mean? And I think from the very beginning, there was a conviction that we've seen these sorts of issues handled poorly in Christian contexts, and we certainly didn't want to add to the carnage. And we talked about how we were going to attempt to do some things differently. So I don't want to rehash the episode except to say that this was not a physical affair. This was not anything like that. But it was still a big deal. And what the thing that was so kind with Bonnie and Tim and our board members was, of course, there was disappointment, frustration, hurt. But there was also the recognition that these were symptoms of much deeper issues. And so I was given grace while Bonnie and Tim did a magnificent job pulling in guests. And I mean, holy cow. I was given permission to just go and work on some stuff. And so there has been some work on some stuff over the last couple of months, as well as huge growth for Bonnie and Tim in the midst of this. So that's kind of the catch up. One of the things we committed to early was not, we weren't going to hide, and we wanted to be honest. And so, it felt like a follow-up this was a good time for a follow-up. Anything you want to add, sweet Bonnie?
No, I think I think it would be fascinating for everybody to hear. I've heard a little, and Tim has too, but when you say like I had time to process and things like that, like what does that mean exactly? I think, and like what new tools have you gotten?
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Lord.
Like one of the things that we said when we committed to not hiding is like it's always this weird thing where somebody sort of goes behind the scenes and then all of a sudden they're back and nobody knows what happened in those months.
I'm fixed. I'm fixed.
And so can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah.
What does that
sure.
mean? What new patterns, what new, what's been stuff that's grabbed you and changed you?
Well, fantastic question, and please interrupt to clarify, because there's been so much that's going on. It doesn't feel like it's been measured in months. It feels much longer than that.
Yeah.
And so the journey has been, because I have people who love me and a wife who is more than willing to process this and give me time to grow into the husband she deserves. You guys, Tim Bonney and then our Vox board put together a plan that, I was very eagerly participating in terms of going back to therapy. The big thing I think for me is I'd done some internal work back in the day, but it was all around depression and anxiety. And so the goal was relief from depression and anxiety.
Right.
And this was the first time where depression and anxiety weren't leading the conversation, but it was just the reality of the I don't know, just some of the stuff I'm seeing in my soul that I'm just so tired of, and the patterns. I just began to see patterns. And so there were many things and many conversations. There was spiritual direction with a dear friend that was incredible. A couple of books that were incredible. Going back to therapy was incredible. Conversations with Justy and our kids that were incredible. But the thing that was probably most helpful was I had 2 visits to a place called Onsite, which you, Bonnie, recommended.
Yeah.
And it is a place in Nashville, Tennessee, that is a residential, or kind of, it can be long-term or short-term therapeutic sort of place. Mm-hmm. And I did 2 stints there that were, I don't know, I hate to say it this way, but it's just true. This has been the most life-changing experience of my life. I just had no idea. I thought I was self-aware. I thought I was in touch. None of those things are true. And, oh my goodness, you guys. I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but it was life transforming. It really was. And it was transforming in 2 different ways. There was one, the first time I was there was 6.5 day program in a group. And I had a moment that, I don't know, I'll just never forget. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then, and so there was the moment that was so catalytic. And then when I went back, it was one-on-one with a therapist. And that was more like doing the hard digging into old patterns and stuff. So the way I've begun to talk about it was, this was such a magnificent act of grace to be exposed, to stop pretending, to be caught and not able to run, who gets time away to focus on inner work, right? This doesn't happen if you're a mechanic or a plumber or whatever, right? I mean, this is an incredible gift of grace, but this gift of grace is being habituated into new patterns, right? Patterns of newness. Because the easiest part was beginning to see, oh my Lord, I have been ashamed and afraid my whole life. I just had no idea that so many of the drivers come from those 2 places. And then to start doing work around those things and to see progress and to begin to experience newness. It's been a pretty amazing deal. And then I just have to say, like, personally, and I hesitate saying it because it could sound cliche, but I've always been afraid to go inside because I feel like there's this little kid that's lurking in there who's just screaming his head off all the time and scared and fearful and ashamed and whatever else. And I really was scared. I know. I was scared that the whole Jesus thing would just be flimsy. And, I would have talked a good game. But when I really dug down in, there wouldn't be anything there. And the opposite sort of happened. And what I found was something just so unbelievably sturdy that I could kind of flop back into it. in ways I'd never, ever done before. And so, you know, I'm just learning how to walk out of some of this stuff. And I'm so grateful to you guys for not only the work you've done in the last couple of months on the podcast, but just, again, I can't overemphasize how important it was to have people who took this symptom seriously, because they were a big deal, and they are a big deal, but realized they were connected to much deeper things. And if we overcorrect on the symptoms, you never get to the deeper stuff.
Right.
And
right.
so
Or you just only focus on that.
Yeah, exactly. And so much of sin management, you know, is we're just focusing on the symptoms. You know, it's not, we're focusing on the medicators, we're focusing on the behaviors, and all of that matters, no question. But that's not what needs healed, you know, and repaired.
So let me ask you this. One of the things in our approach when we set out a plan was a very holistic approach, like we're talking about, right? Like not sin management, but this sort of 360, it's all calculated in. And then when you and I talked just a few days ago, one of the things you said to me is you said, gosh, things that have had a profound impact in my life the past few months are things like more knowledge about the Enneagram, about spiritual direction, about different things. And so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Onsite isn't explicitly Christian,
Correct.
right? I believe it isn't. So people...
Correct. I was in a group I was the only Christian there.
Right. So I kind of I don't want to miss out on an opportunity, because I hear a lot in my spiritual direction clients that are going to therapy and stuff like that, is a lot of times they'll be people are Christian and I can't find a Christian therapist, and so therefore I'm not going to go. Or these uncertainties about spiritual direction, or even Enneagram, or these different tools, and if it's not explicitly in this definition of what I know to be Christian, then I can't use it. And I personally don't believe that's true. I would love to hear how you've actually experienced that in the past few months.
Yeah. That's a great question. It's a big theological issue.
Yeah.
But I'll just speak from experience, because I'd always been told what my Enneagram number was, and I was like, okay, we've talked about it before on the podcast. But then somebody who was totally random, I was having a conversation with them, like, oh, and by the way, you're this with this wing. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went back and I read the one book I have on it. And it was unbelievable. The explanatory power over things I have done and turned to was so ridiculous. I took 4 pages of single-spaced notes from this one popular level book. I mean, it was so ridiculous. And so, oh my goodness, I'm waking up to that. I've never been pastored like I've been pastored by a friend who is doing spiritual direction, but I'm the way in which he contained theology I've always known and believed and taught myself, but now, you know, I'm having to trust it. I mean, and the thing that's amazing is how little I actually believe, you know, these words of Jesus. And so here I am, and he's just dropping bombs that are transformative. And then I'm with, at Onsite, I was with 3 different therapists over 2 visits, and I have no, guess as to their spiritual whatever. Certainly things they were saying are congruent absolutely with the Christian story, but my goodness, the stuff, I mean, I'm not in a place where I want to share it yet. But there were some exercises they had us do that if I were just some Joe Schmo off the street like I was, like months ago, I would have gone, there's no way I would do that. And then you get there, and their big mantra is, trust the process. And so there were some things that happened that were like legit Jesus things that came through these means. And I've always felt theologically we have a great deal of permission to see Christ, to find truth wherever it is and to claim it because it's ours, you know?
Yeah, I was
But
just going to say that. Yeah. And this idea that in that sense, like I do think we have a God that runs after us and who wants participation with us in our
Yes.
healing. And so
That's right.
I do think like whatever ways he can grab us and and step in and he's going to do that, you know?
Oh, and he did. I mean, that again, I don't want to be cliche, but I can't. I mean, if I'm just reflecting on my experience, this has been amazing because of how pursued I felt in my shame, and it's all new, and so I know that, and it's got to be habituated, and that's why that's the most important piece. Yeah. But to have felt welcomed when some of my biggest fears were realized, you know, it was just a remarkable thing. So
yeah,
I feel like that's such an important. I hope that people catch that. I know we're talking about a bunch of different things, but that idea that because it's the shame that's the thing that we always, I mean, to be found pursued in your shame, to be found pursued in the stuff that we always want to hide the most.
Yeah.
Right. And then we've been trying to figure out how to model that. I mean, we're walking from step one, we've been walking in the dark, trying to figure out how to do this intentionally in a way that edifies you and your family. And then the church
everyone else involved.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that's such a key thing because we talked about how difficult it is sometimes in pastoring roles to feel like you can be, what's the word? Just transparent, right?
Yeah.
Or just be like, I'm a human being that struggles with this and that and that and this, and I've got pain and I make bad choices and I do all this stuff, and how much we've set up a culture to run into our shame and to hide, stick on the back burner and that kind of stuff. But I just think that that's such a helpful healing thing to be like, you are pursued in your shame. Like that it's not above or beyond anything, that God he's aware of it. He knows what's happening. He's coming after it.
Yeah. And we see that modeled in the garden when they find out they're naked. And then they're banished, and it says that God sits with them and knits them clothes. That's like, they're ashamed, right? They're ashamed and they feel naked, and we have a God that sits with us and helps clothe us and does it together. So that's huge.
It is huge. But Tim, as you speak of vulnerability, like one of the very important things that I learned, and there's so many, but it's the idea of the difference between sharing scars versus sharing wounds. And so the analogy he was using is, listen, wounds are still bleeding and they need to be covered. They shouldn't be exposed, they need to be covered and protected. Similarly, one of the very common sort of trauma responses that people have is something he called forced vulnerability, which is where you use oversharing as a way to try to connect with people, and a way to try to sort of reinforce your public whatever. So I think some people would say, I've been open about stuff, and true, but I wonder if it was openness from a genuine place or if it was openness from a place of like, hey, I want to belong here, and it was just super interesting because I was so tempted to come and to sort of share all these details, and I'm realizing, that's not, you share the scars, you don't share the wounds. And I thought that was such a helpful, because like, to take the bandage metaphor a step further, at some point the wound has to be exposed, right? The wound has to be exposed or it gets infected. But that's not until later in the process. And so, my MO has been sort of to overshare. Tim, what are you looking at?
There's a bird. I'm in my laundry room, and I'm on the window, and the little bird keeps landing on the perch while we're talking.
Oh, okay. You were. I couldn't tell if you were upset, if you were...
I'm also kind of squinting because my eyes are sensitive to sunlight.
Oh, okay, describe sunlight just for a second. It's been...
It's very bright is what it is.
No, does the metaphor make sense?
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong too, because I feel like sometimes that sometimes we like to overexpose the wound, because that idea of like, you know, like look at me dealing with this sin, or you know what I mean, like look at me doing this thing, and it's almost like you're just picking at the wound over and over again rather than allowing it to heal, to become that scar. But we're just kind of like continually picking up, like no, look at me, I'm dealing with this, I'm doing this, and it's like, so I think it's very helpful and very pertinent. Let's pause for 1 second. There's a noise in the background of somebody.
That is Seth on the swing in the basement.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's squeaking.
Gotcha.
It's the squeak. I was like, is that a bird? What is it? Because it doesn't sound like a
I couldn't tell if you guys heard it.
Oh, yeah. We were texting, like, is that children talking in the background, or what's happening? We couldn't figure out what it was.
Is that your kids?
No, that is the swing. I'm so sorry. I can try to shut him down, but he's behaving so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the reality of quarantine.
It is the reality of that is absolutely true.
Yeah, when you talk about like how sometimes we continually pick at it, sometimes I think as like a look at me situation for the wound. Sometimes I think that we do that for two other reasons. I know for me, when it was a loss situation, it was, if I continually picked at it for a long time, that's how our son lived on. Right? Like there was this sense of, if I heal, he will be forgotten, or I will forget him. Yeah. You lose that. So I think that's sometimes part of it. And then I think the other is like, we really do have this instinct of, even when our habitual patterns are unhealthy, even when they aren't serving us, they have become so ingrained that they're safe. So sometimes when we start healing, it's easier to pick back at that wound because that almost feels safer than to go into this unknown territory of newness and new patterns and healing. Yep. So I don't know. Yeah. I think that's part of it sometimes too. But so speaking of not talking through, because all of this stuff, like everything you're saying, Erre, and what I'm hearing you say is like, hey, I had these big months, have these big aha moments, but now the real thing is putting it into practice, new patterns, new habits, newness, inhabiting it and living it out. And so, you know, we got a ton of questions after the first episode about how Justina was doing. Yeah. And that was never our place to say anything, and everything was so raw. So can you talk about how she's doing now? A few months later.
She has done two things really well. One, she's just said, and we both said from the very beginning of our marriage, you know, we're in it to win it. And she's reiterated that. And at the same time, she has been really good at processing my processing, but then processing her processing, meaning that the conversations we've had have been some of the hardest, best conversations as you would imagine, right? And as it should be. Yeah. Because everything I'm saying about me individually, that you inhabit relational space that way too. And so, you know, as I'm waking up to these things, then, oh my goodness, I'm seeing that, you know, I've not done this, or I've done this too much, or whatever. And for her, you know, she feels like I have ears to hear her in ways I haven't before. Obviously she feels like, you know, she gets the shitty end of all of this. And very, very, you know, there were just waves of hurt and of course, I mean, oh my goodness, of course. But in terms of how we're doing, you know, I mean, we're months in, but it's some of the healthiest stuff that's been true of us in a long time. Neither of us are big introspective, like, let me just get in touch with things that are going on. And so with special needs kids and moves across the country and job changes and churches and just on top of everything else. There was just a lot that was there. And so she is commended as just a rock, absolutely bedrock. And, I'm able to hear kind of how not just this, but the patterns, right? Because those are the things like you trace, you look at this and you're like, dang, this was awful. But then you trace that back into the bedrock of character, and you're like, dang, what, these things have been present in lots of different ways. So, there's it's just a lot of repentance and not trying to earn her approval back, or because I could do that even with God, but it's more like I want to inhabit newness. And, and so it's very much a parallel track as I'm learning these things. I'm learning these things about me in my marriage and how I've been showing up there, and it's very humbling because I think I'd pictured myself to be a pretty good husband and a pretty good father. And then you realize, oh man, there are these huge gaping bits that I never saw or didn't want to see,
Right.
So it's been like everything has been good. It's been super hard. The new thing for me is not running away from hard, because that's typically what I try to, what my shame response is to run, and to not run has been super healing and difficult.
Yeah.
And
then I don't know, joke's on you, but now you're quarantined together. So you really physically can't go anywhere.
No, but it's actually, had we been
timing.
not doing all this stuff. Yeah. No, it's really good. It is. I didn't even think about it that way. That's really funny. I was like, no, I couldn't pick 4 more people I'd rather be quarantined with than, this foursome that we got. But thanks for asking.
Well,
I mean, it's, there's a sense in which.
Go ahead.
No, there's just a sense in which I don't want to speak for her, but I've been really happy. There was something my therapist said that when I was there at the first trip, and I was in a group of guys, 3 of whom were deciding between their wife and their mistress. Okay, like they were there to decide if they were going to leave their wives. One had already filed papers, and she said to one of the guys, she said, everything you want is right there with your wife if you're willing to work for it. And I don't know, that so resounded in me, like, I hadn't been working, and I, in fact, how quick I could have easily believed that it's not true, and it was just a fascinating process to be confronted with the disconnect and then be invited to try to walk in integration, because I've always been able to integrate around my shame, right? I can always confess how sinful I am. I'm the biggest sinner in the room, right? I can always integrate myself around that. I can't integrate myself around something other than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it totally does.
So I mean, and I know the thing that's been so good has been the theology and the theory has become reality in ways that never could have happened otherwise. I mean, I've never, that noise you're hearing, by the way, that is Seth swinging. This is quarantine life. If you can hear that, we installed a swing in our basement 2 days ago.
That's so smart. I need to do that.
So, yes.
Well, yeah. I need to get something going. It's not cold here, so I could do it outside. I got to do something.
Yeah. And I know, by the way, I'm being vague in some things, but I'm trying to follow the therapist's advice. Just say, you don't have to share it all. You just don't have to share all the big stuff. And there's some things, though, I mean, what the conversation, the stuff I've learned around shame has been transformative for me. So I'm eager for that. But I'm still so new and trying to walk without it as my defining story that I hesitate to talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
and I think it's so important because, like you said, like going forward in your life, like everything, when you have a big experience like that, or you have big aha moments, things like everything's kind of new. Everything's different, but also the same. And it's sort of a weird thing. And I know for Tim and I, we were talking about this too. Like we've all experienced like sort of a newness in the past 3 months. It obviously looks different from each of us. But Tim, you want to talk about some things that like you've seen or learned or grown in the past few months?
Oh, it would have been wise of me to have prepared something to say on that.
You did know it was coming.
I know. This is quarantine. Quarantine has been scramble. Like, I teach at Jessup, which we reiterated about 1,000 times with Dr. Schaefer Elliott. Yeah. But retooling everything in the house has been an adventure. I think for me, I've been on a journey of God teaching me, I think, like how participate. So like, I was praying yesterday, that kind of that verse, creating me a clean heart, or just kind of going over that kind of stuff. Like,
it'd make a good song.
Yeah, it would. I was thinking about writing. I was like, it's got a melody to it already. I feel like creating something. I don't know. There's something there. But I've been learning so much about participate, like my role in that prayer. So I've just been learning a ton about partnership. That it was kind of God's intention in the beginning, making kings and queens to rule alongside and to partner with, and then. Even Bonnie, as you shared, like, partnering in the shame and then partnering going forward, and how much God wants us to participate in what he's doing, but even just in healing and even in growing and, praying for these great magical, I don't want to say magical, just praying for these great big things to come and change me, and God being like, yeah, I want to do that. I would love to do that. This sounds great. Here's what I need you to do to be a part of that. Like, here's the role that you need to play. And here's the and creating, as we're talking about, like, creating new neural pathways, like, that's a real thing. Like the way your brain is built, constructed, like that's a very real, tangible, physical thing that needs me to be involved in that process of leaning into this and trying to create those new habits and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like in some ways my journey has been, alongside of Mike's. Like I'm going through a process. I think we all are. We should be continually chasing after Jesus and trying to. I just, I've said many times on the podcast that I'm skeptical when people act like they've figured it all out. So it's like, well, if you think you really figured it all out, I feel like you might have taken a left turn somewhere, because there's a lot to figure out. So I've been really kind of making peace with this journey of like, I'm going to be in a growth process forever, and that's cool. And that's part of it. And I'm going to continually be trying to be refined and I don't know, refocus and all that kind of stuff. So this has been, obviously when I came on the podcast, I came on just to edit it. And then
we roped you all the way in.
Yeah. Mike needed a Andy Richter to bounce off of. And then here I am talking again. And so I intentionally was trying to stay very clear of what we're doing right now. But
you're welcome. How about you, Bonnie?
Yeah, I think, I guess I'm the odd one out. I don't feel like newness. I think I do in some ways. But more of this like, sort of low burn, feeling that's been there for a long time, and then I finally had no choice but to live it out. So for me, and this is just a truth of my growing up in ministry, is like I've always been, ever since I started thinking I wanted to do something that had anything to do with leadership and Christianity, in some way I have worked with you as a position of a mentor or teacher in the time. And so it was a weird spot for me to, we wanted to all give you space, right? To like learn and grow. So it was a weird spot and to be healed and to take the time you needed. So when, the board members were like, okay, so can you and Tim, can you guys keep doing the thing? I remember thinking like, yes. And like my immediate thought was, I'm going to call Erre and ask. And then I was like, oh, shoot, no, I'm not calling Erre and ask. So it was an interesting place for me in terms of realizing my own, I don't know how to say this without sounding like Elsa from Frozen 2, but it's on repeat over here.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. But like stepping into my own power, if that makes sense, of going, oh yeah, I am capable of these things, and to be able to have a minute to think about the things I do like to do versus the things that roles I've just stepped into because I've wanted to in the past, or you know what I mean? Like, so this idea, I think the newness for me comes with feeling more in touch with who I am, and more in touch with being in like what a gift it is to be with a group of people that lets us be ourselves and lets us throw things and see if they stick and then take them down later if they don't. And so what a gift that is. And also just being able to go, like, to watch you and your transformation, and for you to say, like, even when we started this, you to say, like, gosh, coming back on the podcast and being able to come and feel healthy and feel like have learned all the stuff that's not a day I envisioned. But watching you go through that process too was such a reminder for me of how it doesn't matter what we're doing, whether it be going through something healing or doing a creative project or a job or a season of your life. Like, it's never too late. We can always turn things around. There's always hope. There's always new creation. So that's been inspiring to me as well over the past few months.
Yeah.
Because I'm old? Is that what you're saying? Just kind of
super old. So I was like, wow, if Erre can do it.
That's fair.
Bonnie
That's
likes
totally
old
fair.
and jolly people.
Yeah. Well, all right. I'll admit to those descriptors. Absolutely.
I didn't give you those. Okay, Tim did. Let's be clear on that.
No, but Bonnie, I think we all see that for sure. And you know, I mean, the biggest compliment I can give is just I never worried. You know, I mean, in terms of, like, I saw the thinking and the creativity, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just so proud of you guys.
Well, Bonnie and I never worried either.
Yeah, we were smooth sailing.
We've been on a boat of confidence this entire time.
I'd be like, Tim, do you think it's fine to text Erre? No, okay.
I know. I'm sorry.
But that was that was needed. I think that was so needed
I know,
for all of us.
But I hated putting everyone in that situation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
ultimately, ladies and gentlemen,
Back again.
guess who's back?
Seffi's back.
Seffi.
Seffi, do you want to say hi to the Vox?
Hi, Vox.
Say, how are you doing?
What are you doing?
No, say, how are you doing? How are you? Are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's it been being inside today?
Stick inside. I'm sick.
Yeah, everyone's sick. Yep, so we stay inside. That's right.
Yeah.
Were you on the swing?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, can you say bye, Vox?
Bye, Vox. Can I say go again?
Good night. Have a good weekend.
We will.
So it's not you, Dad.
I love you. I know, buddy. Thank you. See, it's everything. No, I feel so, I don't know, help me bounce these things I want to say off of you. Because I want to say, well, on the one hand, I'm worried I'm being too positive. Because the amount of work and weeping and repenting and that is still left to be done, you know, is immense. I mean, it's a staggering amount of work to try to begin to, and so I've been so disoriented in my own life because I don't know how to be, other than the tracks that have been laid for years and years and years. And so I don't want to be too positive, but I still can't help but thank Jesus for his kindness, because he's done a couple of things that were mind blowing, like literally mind blowing to me. And I'm just like, it's not ever been as real, and I hate that this is what it took. I can't tell you how proud I am of my wife and kids, as we've had really honest conversations. I can't tell you how proud I am of our community. I mean, we released the episode in January 2024 when I was at Onsite. And so they take your phone for 6.5 days. I had no idea, and I was horrified, right? I mean, the greatest fear of my life has just been being exposed,
Yeah.
And so I turned my phone on, and there's just this outpouring of kindness, disappointment, of course, as there should be, and pain, of course, as there should be. But what a remarkable community, we've all been a part of. Somebody said it, and I know this sounds self-serving, but it rung so true to me. But it was like, we've created the kind of community that I would need. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Who gets that? Who gets that?
Yeah.
And to even have this conversation, to say, man, I'm just beginning to see the outlines of the patterns, and I'm just learning how to walk in newness. And that doesn't mean I'm fixed in any way, shape, or form. It just means I've begun to see how sick, and some of it is me, and some of it's the stuff that goes way back, and still sorting all of that out. But this community has just been magnificent, because not only of how they've blessed and treated you guys, but how willing they're still to, because the thing that's so toxic in the Christian space is, the more the public self gets rewarded and applauded, the more indicted the private self becomes. And you realize, I can't share the private self.
Yeah.
Because the public self is the one being loved and used and whatever. And so to have the private self exposed, and then to realize, like, the people closest aren't running. I mean, I would have agreed with all of this theory, but when you're the object of it, and when you're the person that's caused the pain, and you're the person that's embarrassed, and you're the person, but then to feel pursued not only by people but by God. I mean, I didn't even think I would get emotional. I've never seen, I don't know how to have friends. And I've never seen community. Like, when I was with these guys for 6.5 days, and they were such a mess. I mean, colossal the stuff they were dealing with. And so for the first part, I'm like, I don't know that I belong in this. And then at the end of 6.5 days, like, there's such raw, authentic, no BS community that is forged in that environment. I've never tasted anything like that.
Yeah.
I've never tasted, my wife being able to call out my worst and still love me. I don't know how to handle that. I just don't. Shame and hiding go together, and so to be known and to still be welcomed and wanted, I just have no emotional register for that. And so I find all my emotions are amped up more, I mean, and I feel numb, and it's just weird. I don't know how to describe it. Jesus has been so unbelievably faithful, but he's used all of this stuff, some of it explicitly Christian, some of it not.
Yeah.
But I can't help but say, this is what I've seen and heard. Like, one of the things we heard from our community is that there are loads of people who've lived in similar dichotomies, right?
Yeah.
And I just, as a person, maybe one step, forward in the thing, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like the freedom that has come with aligning around the truth about me, about Jesus, about everything has been remarkable, I was terrified that if I went inside, the depression and anxiety would take over, and it's not been the case at all. That they were never the issue, I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's been, and I'm fumbling around. Let me just say this, that there's a story my therapist said is true. So academically, there's been, and I take his word for it, but and all good stories start, there's a village in Africa. Okay. So there's a village in Africa. And what they do, and he said this is true because I pressed him on it. I'm like, there's no way that's true. And he's like, no, this is true. So I'm trusting this. But he said, so when a couple decides to have a child, the mother will go out and she will ask the world. She'll go out into nature and ask the world or whatever for a song. What's the song of my child?
What does the fox say?
What does the fox say is what Seth has added. That was the song for Seth. No question about it. Perfect timing.
Oh my gosh, that was so good.
So
he was like, "Oh, I know the answer. What does the fox
I got this. So
Oh, that was perfect.
So she sang. A song comes to her. That's going to be the song of her child, and then as the child is being conceived, the father and the mother are singing this song as they're conceiving the child. Okay, and then as the mother is giving birth, they're singing over the same song. They're singing over the child, and which I think is so freaking amazing. But then they said, if the child goes off the tracks and is wayward in some way, what they do is they don't excommunicate the child from the village, but they all gather. They gather around the child and they sing its song.
Oh.
They sing them back home. And I don't want to overlook the privilege of having that done to me. It's a privilege afforded a very few. And I've learned a lot about how I would want to help, disciple, form, rescue others in similar situations, not because I've got it at all, but because I've seen that it can be done. You know what I mean? Do you see the difference? It's not like, hey, I've got it figured out. No. But it's, this can actually happen in a way that isn't the usual way. And, how do you ever say thank you enough? Because I just feel very fortunate and very blessed and very loved, which, is new. So anyway, that's what I got.
Well, Erre, we're so grateful for your vulnerability and your journey and your willingness to do that. I think that it's one thing to have an opportunity in front of you, but not everybody would choose yes to coming out of hiding because that's scary and it's vulnerable and it's terrifying actually and painful. All of those things before it gets better. So I don't know. We see you.
Thank you.
We do.
I know. You've been incredible. You've been friends and beyond friends. And so thanks. Thanks that you've done such a great job with the podcast side of things. But I mean, I've learned how to be a better friend by watching you guys and some of the people in my life, you know? So, yeah. So where do we go from here, Bonnie?
Well, so the burning question will be, is Mike back?
Oh.
If we don't answer it, we'll get all these things. So Tim, this is what's happening. So Tim and I, we weren't sure. Like we had said to you guys and to each other, we're giving Erre the space he needs and the time he needs. So we don't know what that looks like.
So we've been prepping like quarantined people, just stocking up on canned corn.
Just
and
toilet paper
guests.
No, so we have Tim and I had planned out a content calendar through the end of April and then a few in May. And so we decided as a team, all of us, Erre included, that we're going to honor the places that Tim and I were taking us. We have some great guests lined up. We think you'll really like them. And then on some of the interviews, just for the next coming weeks, on some of the interviews, Erre will be on the actual interview. On some, he'll be on the outro. Some, he'll be more leading it. Some, I will. It just depends on who the guest is and what we think the best fit will be going forward. So I think that is the plan. Did I miss anything?
No, and that it's a credit to you guys for doing such good work. So not only, has the podcast been happening, but it's been great. And so some of the guests are great. So I just want to affirm you guys and say, absolutely, I think this is really good. It's totally worth honoring how much effort you guys have put in, because my jaw hit the floor with some of the folks. So you've done a great job. So absolutely, I'm very excited, and I may, as we kind of figure out the coronavirus thing deserves some conversation, and so we may do some things around that. I know Bonnie went on last Sunday, and did some spiritual direction, and I think there's a lot of that's kind of needed these days.
Agreed.
So
yeah.
So we may be more active in those sorts of ways too. But I'm excited to be a part.
I know, we're so excited. And then after that, I think in the coming weeks, like you said, we're all figuring out how to inhabit this newness. So we'll do that and we'll figure it out.
We'll see where it goes. Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
It'll be good. But we are so grateful for all of you that stuck with us, cheered us on, cheered Erre on through sticking with us, and listened to me and Tim and all our conversations and everything, and my mayonnaise addiction and all of those things. So.
Yeah, that was the one thing kind of out of the time away that really I think was concerning. Was I don't know.
The mayo. I will tell you, when it was mayhem at the stores the other day, I did buy some extra mayo. I was like, mayo and coffee with
things that aren't in danger of running out. I would imagine are mayo's kind of top of that list probably, but I don't know. Maybe there are more people. Hey, can I
press it into times?
Yeah.
Can I read something to close us?
Yeah, we love it. Is this our blessing?
Well, it'll be a blessing, but it's a poem.
Perfect. We've been putting the blessing on everybody.
I know. I love that.
So
I love that.
Here you are.
Just without any warning, do a blessing.
Much the chagrin and shock to many of our guests.
I love it. So I've discovered this like years ago when I was teaching at Rock Harbor, and this has become new to me in ways that are obvious, I think, once you hear it. So it's by a woman named Portia Nelson, and it's called An Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. It is my fault. I know where I am, and I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down a different street.
That's really good.
And may that be increasingly true of us, my brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.